welcome back to another Retro Gaming Repairs video. Today we are going to be disassembling this system. It's mostly disassembled already. It came in parts when I got it at a flea market, but we're just going to take a few things out and prep the system for cleaning the case and getting everything. RF shielding is loose. I'm assuming the person that had this before tried to repair this. But it is loose. I'll have to pop it back on. I'm suspect about the RF adapter. It looks like the AC jack is broken, so I'm probably going to have to repair that, but I'm going to go ahead and get everything cleaned up and tested first, and then I'll know whether or not I have to do any board repairs. So we'll be using toothbrush and 91% rubbing alcohol. And if I can find my little pads, oh, here they are. And a screwdriver. I'm going to pull these parts out real quick first. And at this point, I'm not going to do the retro braiding. I'm going to get everything up and running first. Once I make sure everything's tested working, I'll go back and I'll pull the parts out and I'll do a retro braiding on it. This is a warning. Please do not ever use rubbing alcohol on silk screen painted parts, like the lid of the Nintendo. You will wipe the silk screening right off. Also, don't use it on labels because, especially the ones on the side, like for the audio and video, you will wipe the labels clean and it will leave a white piece of plastic sticker underneath. So we got this out. Let me set this aside. It looks like it's in good condition. Buttons work well. Springs don't look like they have any issues. But I will take this off, those buttons off later, and probably get them looking brand new. I'll store all my stuff in a container. Helps me keep things together so I don't lose anything. And this is a pretty dirty system, but what can you expect from a system that is from around 1985? So now we're going to pull the motherboard out and set it aside, and we are going to do a good thorough cleaning of it. I have my 91% rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to just douse the hell out of this. And we're going to do a gentle scrubbing. Backside, you don't have to be too gentle. There's nothing to break off on the backside, so I'm just going to do this real quick. And this is just to remove any smoke residue if it was in a smoker's home, dust, debris, just to keep it nice and clean. And then I'm going to come back and squirt a little bit more rubbing alcohol on this to get the excess dirt off. Everything looks good. Shake the excess off. And then we will do the front side. Now you have to be careful on this side. You don't want to do anything too hard. Take your time. And I'm barely using any pressure on this brush. But just get in between the parts, make sure everything's cleaned up. I'm sorry, I can't get this other camera to focus properly. I'm going to have to mess with it and see what I can figure out. It's supposed to track with movement, but it's not doing it. So we get all this cleaned up. It's looking good. I don't want to brush on the label too much. Let's go ahead and clean this off. And now I'm going to use my hot air gun on low setting. And I'm going to go ahead and dry this board off so that there's no moisture that's left underneath the chips. I'm going to do it mostly on the back side. Helps the evaporation process a little bit better for the front. And you don't want to do this too hot. I can still touch this and it's not more than maybe 100, 110 degrees. I'm just doing this so that I can get the excess off. And we'll do the front. And this is 91%, so it won't take too long to dry it all off. But I do want to make sure everything's completely dry before I put it back in the case. Just a couple of minutes of doing this. I'm going to tap it a little bit to make sure that there's nothing still underneath the chips. Looks like there was just a little bit of moisture still there. And I'm mainly doing this because I'm going to let this sit for a day or two while I work on another project after I get to the point where I can test it. And I don't want to leave any moisture underneath the chips to rust or do damage to the board, so I'm just going to make sure this is thoroughly done. And I am noticing that one of the controller ports has some bent pins, so I'm going to have to work on that. As you can see, I'm holding the board, so it's not even really that hot. This feels maybe like 120, 125 degrees. So it's definitely warm to the touch, but it's not anything that's going to burn you or damage the components. Just do area by the RF adapter, RF box. And we should be just about good now. Alright, so I'm going to put that aside. And now I'm going to use some number 3 from my polishing scrubs. Normally I use this for plastic, but it works great on cleaning off the corrosion that's on the contacts. And it's not abrasive like sandpaper. I mean, it's abrasive, but very fine abrasive, so it's mostly just going to remove any kind of surface stuff. And there are a couple spots on here where there's some really bad corrosion, and I'm hoping that this will help take those spots off. And I'm going to use my polishing cloth for jewelry. I'll eventually have some of these in my store so you can buy them. I'll make them cheaply priced so that there'll only be a few dollars to get 10 or 15 of them, and that will include shipping, so they won't be very expensive. Look how dirty that was. Holy cow. So this looks like it's going to be really clean afterwards. I'm going to use rag, wipe the excess polishing liquid off, and then I'll go back and rub it one more time with the cloth. Oh, see, there's that corrosion. It got most of it off, it looks like. See if I can zoom in here and let you guys see a little bit better. There's two little spots. So it's not too bad. They were bigger than that when I first started, so it definitely helped a little bit. But I'm going to use my fingernail, maybe a little scraper, and see if I can get some more of that off of there. We'll polish this up one more time. Yeah, that was really dirty. And it's nice and smooth other than this little spot. Alright, I scrape most of that off. Shouldn't affect the gameplay any. The pens will actually make more contact on those spots than they will not, so I don't see an issue with it. Go ahead and clean up the ground spots on the board. Clean up the RF shielding on the RF box. Alright, everything's looking good. A little bit more cleaning. Nice and shiny. And I'm going to do just a little bit more. Now we'll just wipe this down a little bit more again. Alright, so we've got these pens here. Can't really see it. Let me see if I can get this focused a little bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. You can see that there's three of the last four pens are out of whack. So I'm going to use a knife and I'm going to gently bend these pens back, and hopefully I don't break any of them while I do it. That is the controller port. I believe it's the second controller. So it is definitely necessary to fix that. Let me find my knife real quick. Yeah, I know I need to organize my drawer a little bit better. Knife, knife, knife. Where are you, knife? Ooh. Alright. So I'm going to just ever so slightly bend these and try not to break them or cut myself. That one looks good. Let's get this one. That's not too bad. I should be able to get the controllers to go back in. Alright, so this is in fast forward mode. Save a little bit of time. I'm going to disassemble the stoner system, serial number 3.9 million something, and use it for parts on the launch day since it was one of the last systems that used the same top mold. And I'll be pulling a couple of things out of here to use, including the cartridge tray, the top RF shielding, and the controller ports. A lot of screws in here. So we get the RF shield off. Everything looks really clean. This is one of the cleanest systems I've seen. I've actually opened this before to test it, but I didn't go any further than just basic testing on it because I had a feeling it was the capacitors. So I've ordered some replacement capacitors and I'm going to try to repair this board in another video. But yeah, this is a very clean system. Let me unplug everything. Yeah, and this is a different revision board. One's 4, one's 7. My understanding is they went through 3 revisions of the board before it actually launched. The pin on the cartridge holder is nice and intact, so it connects without letting the cartridge pop back up. And the 72 pin connector looks like it's in good condition, so I'll pull the rest of the stuff out of here. And then we can get on to cleaning. Set this aside since we got all the parts we need. Keep the screws separate, case screws and the board screws. All right, we've got everything cleaned up now. And I'm just going to do a basic assembly. I'm not going to completely put it back together, just get it in there and held down with a couple of screws so that things don't slide apart. That way I can do a quick testing of the system. And I gotta put the controller port back in. Make sure you don't rub the silk screen printed numbers with rubbing alcohol. They will come off. And we'll stick this in here to see which one needs to go to the switch side. So that one is controller 1. I'll just clean these up a little bit. And controller number 2 is the longer cable. It wraps around in the side. That's where I did the pin repair earlier. And this is held in by the 2 short screws. And it looks like there's some Scotch tape that's been on here for 30 years. And we'll clean the buttons off. Remember, silk screen, do not clean with rubbing alcohol. So the power and the reset, if you get rubbing alcohol on them, dab it off. Don't wipe it off. You do not want to remove the paint from those. So we'll get the power button and the reset button assembly back in. I need a bigger screwdriver. Alright, so let's put the board in. That looks like it's going to fit good. Okay, let's connect the controllers and the power. Alright. And just to make sure the cartridge slot doesn't move, I'm going to put in 4 screws to hold everything in place. This is just to make sure everything's making a good connection. And now let's get this thing tested. I've got Arkanoid, one of my favorite games for the Nintendo. And we've got it in. And let's pray. I don't think this is going to work. And the reason why is because the cable is loose. And you can see here it just wiggles. I've looked inside the jack. It doesn't look like the metal pin that it makes the connection on the outside of the plug is high enough to actually make contact. I've tried wiggling it around. Nothing seems to get power, and I know this is a working power adapter. It's a brand new third party that I've already tested on a working system. So I have one of 2 issues here. Well, I have at least one of 2 issues, possibly 2 issues, but the first issue is this AC jack is way too loose, as you can see. I definitely have to replace that. And probably can't really see in there, but that pin, you can't even see the pin, and so it just slides in and out. No effort at all, and it will come right back out. And that's how much play there is. But the second issue is this may need a cap rebuild.